Words appear, a Lens 15 media production. A boat passes through a harbor.
I only knew two things about the Maldives before I arrived here. One was that I'd never be able to afford to stay in any of its fancy resorts. The other thing is that sea level rise is a real threat.
A seawall.
It's the world's lowest lying country, and some predictions say that by the end of this century, many of its inhabited islands could be underwater.
A wave passes through a gap in the seawall. A plane flies above the coastline.
This was the third and final stop of my Fulbright project that looked at the ways climate change impacts people with a disability. And I wanted to find out how, or if this community is included in the country's climate change adaptation planning.
Hey, good to see you.
So I reached out to the Maldives Association of Persons with Disabilities for some insight.
Jason greets a man in a motorized wheelchair.
I want to find a family that has a disabled family member, maybe someone who's on the autism spectrum, and who lives in an island, lives in an area that is, really at risk of sea level rise and might have to be evacuated or even relocated.
The group's founder, Ahmed Mohammed, offered to take me to his home island to find out how people there feel about these risks.
Jason enters the cabin of a passenger boat on a coastline.
How concerned is the average Maldivian about rising water?
The youth and the people educated, they believe in it, but still it is very difficult to convince the local people about this because they said it is not rising because they can't imagine.
My cameraman, Abdullah Yaman, and I went around some of the islands in the Mimu Atoll.
Water sprays off the sides of a quickly moving boat.
From what I heard, climate change wasn't really on anyone's radar. That's even despite the signs that coastal erosion is speeding up here. The people I met seemed more concerned about a tsunami. Back in 2004, a tidal wave swept over these islands. In its aftermath, officials built an evacuation center here for any kind of disaster, but it looks like they forgot to add an elevator or a ramp. So it didn't seem like these concerns were on the government's radar either. I reached out to disaster planning authorities. One official acknowledged that disability inclusion in emergency planning still has a long way to go. For now, the residents of the Mimu Atoll told me they'll rely on each other to stay safe, but they'd at least like to know that the government has a plan for people with disabilities in the case of another disaster.
A long-haired man rides a motorized wheelchair toward the sunset along the coast. Credits: Jason Strother, director. Audio description by Lens 15 Media and read by Keely Giblin. With support from the Institute for International Education.